Imagine a darkness so absolute it feels like a physical weight pressing against your chest. There are no streetlights, no digital glows, and no moon to guide your path. You are crouching in the mouth of a cave in South Africa nearly 2 million years ago. In your hands, you hold the most dangerous and transformative technology on Earth. For decades, the narrative was simple. We believed our ancestors only mastered the flame quite recently in the grand scale of time. We like to think of ourselves as the clever ones who finally stepped out of the shadows. But a 2026 breakthrough at Wonderwork Cave has just shattered that timeline. Our ancestors were maintaining hearths between 1.07 and 1.79 million years ago. This was not a lucky lightning strike they happened to find by chance. This was a deliberate, sustained mastery. They were gardening the light while the rest of the world remained in the cold deep. This is us. Today we are dismantling the myth of the lonely pioneer and entering the crowded cradle. You have likely been shown a very specific image of your own history. It is a straight line of silhouettes, each one slightly taller and smarter than the last. It is a ladder of progress. And you are standing at the very top, looking down at the primitive versions of yourself. That story is a comforting fiction. New fossil evidence from Ethiopia in 2025 proves that the genus Homo was never a solo act. 3 million years ago, our direct ancestors lived side by side with a different species called Australopithecus. We were roommates in the same landscape. Evolution was not a quiet, empty climb. It was a crowded, competitive, and likely very noisy room. Think of your brain as an ancient piece of software running on modern hardware. Most of its core code was written when the world was full of other versions of humanity. We were just one experiment among many, running simultaneously in a massive biological laboratory. But our survival did not just come down to who was faster or stronger. It came down to a series of biological switches waiting to be flipped. We used to believe that language was a sudden miracle that happened 50,000 years ago. The story went that one day we were silent and the next we were poets. 2026 genetic research suggests a different path called the HACUR's framework. These are human ancestor quickly evolved regions found deep within your genome. These are not just genes. They are regulatory switches that control how your brain develops its complex architecture. These switches were already present in the common ancestor we shared with Neanderthals. It means complex communication is hundreds of thousands of years older than we thought. You are not using a modern tool when you speak. You're running a protocol designed for a world where a human meant many different things. But the escalation of this story is even stranger. If the room was crowded, how did we treat the others? We have long assumed that our history was one of total war. We thought we were the winners who wiped out every rival. But the evidence suggests something more haunting. We did not just fight our cousins, we invited them inside. Look at your reflection. You see a single species and a unified biological identity. But under the skin, you are a genetic mosaic. You are a walking museum of lineages that were supposed to be extinct. Every time you feel a phantom anxiety in a quiet room, that is the software. You are wired to seek the warmth of the crowd because for 1 million years, being alone meant death. We are the survivors of a massive prehistoric merger. In 2024, archaeologists in Slovakia discovered 77 headless skeletons in a village 7 millennia old. This was a spiritual process and a way of navigating the human soul. Our ancestors were already navigating the hidden architectures of the mind long before cities. You feel a mismatch because your hardware is built for the ancient hearth. Your brain is still scanning the shadows for the cousins who vanished. We were never meant to be the only ones here. Our bodies still remember the bushy tree of our origins. And that memory is an active force inside your cells right now. These ancient genetic fragments are currently flipping switches in your immune system. Cousins we thought we outran are the ones helping you stay alive. You can see it now. The cradle was not a nursery. It was a forge for a multi-species legacy. We are the sum of everyone who sat around that first fire. But as we look closer at this mosaic, the shadows are starting to look like us. We aren't alone in our skin. Our biology is a crowded house of ancient spirits. For decades, the narrative was simple and comfortable. We were told we were the ultimate winners of an evolutionary war. We arrived, we conquered, and the lesser humans simply vanished. This was the myth we told to feel superior. the truth is much more intimate. It is a story of a 7,000-year-long embrace between divergent species. New discoveries from Tinchamet Cave in 2026 have shattered the old model. We didn't just replace the Neanderthals through violence. We collaborated on technology. We shared our burial rites, our hearths, and eventually, our very blood. You carry their legacy in your genome right now. It isn't just a dead remnant. It is a living, active force. This DNA still flips functional switches in your body today, manages your bone density and the texture of your skin. Most importantly, it guards your life. You're in some of the most critical parts of your modern immune system are actually Denisovan. Long ago, they survived viruses we had never seen. They passed that biological shield down to us. When your body successfully fights off a modern pathogen, you are using a weapon forged in the prehistory. But this inheritance wasn't just physical. It was about the architecture of the human mind. We used to think art was our invention. We believed we were the only ones who saw ghosts in the stone. Then we looked at the walls of Sulawesi. A hand stencil sits there, frozen in deep red pigment. It was dated in 2026 to at least 67,000 years old. That is 30,000 years older than European cave art. Look closer at those fingers. They aren't purely human. They have been retouched to look like sharp, predatory animal claws. This was a symbolic transformation. It was the birth of the other and the first sign of a spiritual identity. Our ability to speak and imagine didn't happen in a sudden flash. It was a slow burn across multiple species. Genetic switches called HAQERs revealed that complex speech is hundreds of thousands of years old. It predates our own species. It was a gift from a common ancestor, a gift shared by us, the Neanderthals, and the mysterious Dragon Man lineage. Homo longi, found in the fossil beds of China, was a high-intelligence group we are just starting to understand. They weren't primitive outsiders. They were a sister branch that lived with a social complexity that likely rivaled our own. We were a multi-species collective moving across a wild, unmapped world of resources. In Turkey, at the site of Karahantepe, we see this ancient mind in full bloom. It is the 9th millennium BCE. Archaeologists recently found a T-pillar with a human face. Surrounding it are figurines that tell a specific, sequential story. This is the oldest three-dimensional narrative in history. We were master storytellers long before we ever learned to plant seeds. We lived in an era of social complexity and deep biological health. We were tall, lean, and incredibly resilient. Our diet was a diverse buffet. Our leisure time was vast compared to the modern work week. We were living in a biological paradise we didn't yet know we would lose. But the world was changing fast. A shift was coming. A choice that would fundamentally break our relationship with our own ancient software. We were about to trade the freedom of the hunt for the security of the fence. We were about to pay for our growth with the collapse of our individual health. The first great killers were already waiting in the shadows of the first permanent houses. In the cold soil of Siberia, a 5,000-year-old secret is waiting. The first plague was brewing. And the ritual beauty we found at Karahantepe was about to turn into something much darker and more violent. Scientists analyzed DNA from 5,000-year-old remains in Siberia. In 2026, they confirmed the existence of the world's earliest known plague outbreak. It did not discriminate, but it left a signature. The data shows children under the age of 15 were the primary victims of this ancient killer. This was the silent tax of the first permanent settlements. By staying in one place, we turned our homes into a breeding ground for pathogens. We traded the nomadic freedom of the trek for the stagnant air of the village. Viruses moved in with us, waiting in the shadows. As our bodies weakened, our social systems grew more complex and more violent. The ritual beauty of Karahantepe was turning into something much darker. Beyond the stone carvings, a new kind of social order was emerging. It was an order maintained through the terrifying spectacle of death.
Ow.
In 2024, archaeologists in Slovakia uncovered a 77-skeleton nightmare. Every single one was found in a village pit, missing its head. This was not a chaotic massacre. The precision of the decapitations suggests a deep spiritual intentionality behind the violence. These were ritual burials. We were beginning to use the body as a currency to communicate with the divine or the earth. By 4,000 years ago, this ritual violence scaled. Northern Iraq provides the first evidence of organized siege warfare. We weren't just protecting families from beasts, we were building walls to protect our grain from other humans. This is the birth of the great trade-off. You can feel the weight of this bargain in your own skeleton today. Compare the bones of an ancient hunter to those of an early farmer. The farmer was shorter, sicker, and more fragile. Hunter-gatherers lived in what researchers call the Eden hypothesis. They spent fewer hours working and enjoyed a vastly more diverse diet. Their bodies were fine-tuned for movement. They ate hundreds of plant species, keeping their bones dense and their immune systems sharp. Then came the Neolithic Revolution. We traded that diverse vitality for a single reliable source of calories, grain. Our dental health collapsed immediately. As we moved to soft, sugary starches, our jaws literally shrank, leaving no room for our teeth. This is why your wisdom teeth fail. You have a Stone Age mouth trying to fit into a civilized skull. We sacrificed individual health for species survival. Agriculture allowed our population to explode while our bodies withered. This is the Neolithic mistake. It built the modern world, but left us physically mismatched. You see this conflict every time you crave salt or sugar. Your ancient software thinks you are still in a forest where these are rare prizes. You feel it in your anxiety, which is just a survival mechanism, scanning for predators in a world of fluorescent lights and screens. Civilization is a beautiful mask worn by an animal that is still essentially Paleolithic. We are running modern lives on ancient code, but now that you see the hidden architecture, you can start to question the walls. The game only works if you don't know you're playing. The blueprint of your life was drawn 5,000 years ago in a dusty village. You can see it now. Every struggle you face is a negotiation with an ancestor who just wanted to survive the night. What happens next is on you. You'll be deciding it awake. To understand the invisible system shaping your life, subscribe to O's. We are revealing the hidden architectures of humanity.